lost in the village of demons. The sun was setting as three friends, Ethan, Lucy, and Mark, drove through a winding countryside road on their way back from a weekend camping trip. Thick forests bordered the road on both sides, their branches forming a dark canopy overhead. The GPS signal was lost and their phones had no service. "We should have stayed on the main road," Lucy grumbled, looking nervously at the growing darkness. "We'll be fine," Ethan replied confidently. "This road has to lead somewhere." As they drove deeper into the forest, a dense fog began to roll in, obscuring their view. Suddenly, the car's engine sputtered and died. "Great," Mark muttered. "Now what?" They decided to leave the car and look for help. Not far from the road, they saw a faint light flickering in the distance. Hoping it was a house, they followed the light, their footsteps crunching on the gravel path. The light led them to an old wooden gate, partially ajar. Beyond it lay a village that seemed frozen in time. The houses were small and decrepit, their wooden walls covered in moss. Lanterns hung from poles, casting an eerie glow. "This is weird," Lucy whispered. As they entered the village, they noticed there were no sounds, no animals, no wind, not even the rustle of leaves. The silence was suffocating. "Hello?" Ethan called out. His voice echoed, but no one responded. The trio ventured further into the village. In the center stood a large tree with twisted branches, its roots sprawling across the ground like skeletal hands. Beneath it was a stone altar covered in strange symbols. "I don't like this," Lucy said, her voice shaking. "Let's keep moving," Mark urged, glancing nervously over his shoulder. They approached one of the houses and knocked on the door. It creaked open, revealing a dimly lit interior. Inside, the walls were lined with strange talismans, and the air smelled of damp earth and something metallic. "Is anyone here?" Ethan called. A faint whisper answered, though the words were indistinguishable. The friends froze, exchanging uneasy glances. "Did you hear that?" Lucy asked. Before anyone could respond, a shadow moved across the room. It was quick, almost inhumanly so. "Let's get out of here," Mark said, pulling them toward the door. As they stepped outside, the village seemed to have changed. The fog was thicker, the lanterns dimmer, and the houses appeared more decayed. "We need to leave," Lucy insisted, panic rising in her voice. They turned back toward the gate, but the path was gone, replaced by a dense wall of trees. "This wasn't here before," Ethan said, his voice faltering. The whispers returned, louder this time, surrounding them. Shadows flickered at the edges of their vision, moving unnaturally fast. "Run!" Mark shouted. They sprinted through the village, trying to find another way out. The shadows followed, their forms growing more distinct. They resembled figures with hollow eyes and elongated limbs, their mouths stretched into silent screams. The trio stumbled into a small chapel at the edge of the village. Inside, it was cold and dark. A single candle burned on the altar, illuminating a worn book with symbols similar to those on the stone altar outside. Ethan grabbed the book and flipped through its pages. "This looks like some kind of ritual," he said. Lucy pointed to a passage written in faded ink. "It says something about breaking a curse." Before they could read further, the chapel door slammed shut. The air grew heavy, and the shadows seeped through the cracks, their hollow eyes fixed on the friends. "We don't have time," Mark shouted. "What does it say?" Ethan quickly deciphered the instructions. They needed to light 3 lanterns around the village and return to the altar tree to perform the ritual. Armed with the candle, they raced back into the village. The shadows closed in, their whispering voices growing deafening. They found the first lantern near a well. Ethan lit it, and for a moment, the shadows retreated, screeching in pain. The second lantern was inside a house, its door slamming shut behind them as they entered. Lucy lit the lantern while Mark and Ethan held the door against the pounding shadows. The final lantern was by the altar tree. As they approached, the shadows became more aggressive, their forms solidifying into grotesque figures. Ethan lit the lantern, and the trio hurried to the altar. The ground trembled, and the tree's branches seemed to reach for them. "Read the incantation," Lucy yelled, handing the book to Ethan. As Ethan chanted the ancient words, the shadows screamed, their forms disintegrating into the fog. The village began to shake, the houses collapsing into the earth. With a final, ear-piercing wail, the shadows vanished and the fog lifted. The trio found themselves back on the forest road, their car miraculously working again. They drove away in silence, the eerie village a distant memory. But as they reached the highway, Lucy noticed something in the rearview mirror, a faint figure with hollow eyes standing at the edge of the forest, watching them leave. Some places should never be disturbed, and the Village of Demons was one of them.